Good morning, Rise and Freedom. I'm Austin Petersen. You're watching and listening to the Wake Up America show at wakeupAmericaShow.com. We're grateful to have you here. If you are a regular viewer of the show, you know what to do. Make sure you click that like button as you file in and sit down to join us to hear us talk about the biggest news and stories of the day. If you're new to the channel and this is your first time seeing the Wake Up America show, welcome. Glad to have you here. Make sure you subscribe to whichever channel that you're watching us on, and make sure that you set your schedule, your calendar, to watch the show every Monday through Friday, 7 a.m. to 9 a.m. Central Time, so you can stay informed on everything that's going on in the world and also have a lot of fun doing it. Well, my next story is a pretty big one. A harrowing tale. A submarine on a very pricey tourist expedition to the Titanic shipwreck in the Atlantic Ocean has vanished, with likely only 4 days worth of oxygen. Authorities are now searching for the missing passengers, which includes a famed explorer. The U.S. Coast Guard said the submarine began its journey underwater with 5 passengers on Sunday morning, and the research vessel that it was working with lost contact with the crew about an hour and 45 minutes into the dive. Joining me now to discuss is resident Titanic expert and brother of me, Justin Petersen, joining us on the show. Good morning, Justin.
I think they refer to us as Titaniacs. I think that's what they call people that are like really into the Titanic. Like Titaniacs, or like because we're maniacs about the Titanic.
Yeah. Now, obviously, you don't have like a degree in oceanography or anything like that, but I mean, like, you basically have an associate's degree in Titanic, in the Titanic.
Yeah, no, it's been a real thing since I saw Mom watch the 1953 movie Titanic when we came back from Tractor Supply with Dad. We came. And she came in and she was crying her eyeballs out, and I'm like, "What are you crying about, Mom?" And she was watching this Titanic movie, and I was like, "What's that?" And from then on, I was obsessed.
I mean, it's a thrilling story. You have been following it for years, and anything that goes on with the Titanic, you're all over it. There's a Titanic
Oh yeah,
musical. Obviously, when the movie came out, I think you went and saw it in theaters 3 or 4 times or what have you.
a
And
day.
yeah, exactly. So you pretty much know all there is to know about the Titanic.
Yeah.
But would you ever get in a submarine and go down to, if they would give you that $250,000 ticket for free, would you get in a sub and go down and
No,
look at her?
not ever. Never, 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 never. No, I like terra firma. I'm a big fan of the earth. I'll be on the water, but I'll never be under the water. I'm like, no, no, no. And Mom used to always say, she's like, I never want to go out in a boat where I can't see land. That was like Mom's thing that she'd always say. No, this whole thing is really nightmare fuel. This whole story, I mean, obviously the Titanic has been viewed or visited many, many times, probably thousands of times since it was discovered in 1985 by Dr. Robert Ballard from the Woods Hole Oceanographic Institute. There's been very minor incidents and things happen, but this is probably the most severe situation that's happened so far. It really echoes art. Life imitates art, or in some ways. But in 1980, there was a film called Raise the Titanic that came out, which was a sort of a movie of a novel by Clive Cussler, which was sort of about Russian espionage and the Titanic getting discovered. And one of the submersibles in the story in the movie does implode because of pressures, because there's a leak in the submersible. And at that level of pressure at the ocean, I mean, even the slightest crack can cause catastrophic damage. I mean, it's the pressures at that level in the ocean are unimaginable. And there's so many different scenarios that I've read about this situation, and none of them look great. One of the things that people may not know is that the people that are in the submersible were actually drilled into the submersible. So even if that submersible comes back to the surface of the ocean, there's no way for those people to get out of that submersible because they've been drilled into it.
What do you mean drilled into it?
Well, they literally closed the doors from the outside. It's sealed from the outside. So there's no way that the people from the inside can get out. I mean, this is why I'm saying nightmare fuel. Like, if you claustrophobia, I mean, it's like this story would make me wake up in a cold sweat in the middle of the night screaming, because it's like that terrifying. So even if they are able to rise back up to the surface, they'll still be there with no way of getting out. So, and still a limited oxygen supply. So it's a very grim situation. And I mean, I hate to say this because it's rather macabre, but you would almost prefer the pressurization theory, the implosion theory, to just being deprived of oxygen. I mean, God forbid you go to the bottom of the ocean and you're sitting there at the bottom of the ocean and you might as well be in outer space, literally, in terms of accessibility of people to get to you, you might as well be on the moon.
Fill us
It's
in on that, like
terrifying.
the rescue operation, because I mean, we're talking about 15,000 feet down, and it's not
Yeah,
just, getting down to the bottom of the ocean and looking them on the bottom. You've got the possibility that maybe the sub is like you say, like in space, like the sub could still be like traveling around trying to make it to the surface, but unable to get to the surface, which means it could be anywhere in that
yeah.
15,000 foot zone.
Yeah. There was an interview or a video done, I think it was done by CBS last year, of this particular tourism company where they went over a lot of the features of this submersible. Even as a person who doesn't know much about submersibles, watching that, I was like, this thing looks like the most backyard. Like they were running it with a
An
literal game
Xbox
controller.
controller, yeah.
Yeah. I'm like, no. I mean, you have to understand this kind of a submersible cannot even compare to the high tech like Alvin and the other like high tech near submersibles that have gone down to the Titanic. I mean, those are like the Cadillacs of submersibles. This thing looks like just a long tube, and yeah, the construction of it looks really shoddy. And
Janky, I
yeah,
think, is a word that I heard yesterday, and they say that the
yeah,
development of it was done by professionals, but that many of the aspects of the sub itself are very, simple kind of backyard
yeah,
solutions to do
yeah,
this. It
yeah,
costs $250,000
yeah.
for someone to ride in this thing, but the crew is only 5 people.
Hmm.
And they have enough oxygen for a few days. What are some of the theories of what could have happened that people are talking about right now? There's the implosion theory, but what else?
Right. Well, there's the implosion theory, obviously, that something in the construction of the submersible was faulty and would have the thing of that people, at that depth, death is so instantaneous, you don't even know that something happened. It's so quick. I mean, it's within a blink of an eye and it's gone. The other theory would be that somehow they'd be able to. There were several safety mechanisms in this submersible that would allow it to come back up to the surface, but um, I'm trying to remember some of the other ones. If it's at the bottom of the ocean, I mean, you're kind of SOL. I mean, if it were to finally just disengage and fall and free fall, which is what these submersibles do, right? When they go down, they sort of drop weight and they free fall to the floor of the Atlantic. And I think this is the thing about the story. The contact was lost only about halfway through their descent. So they don't, there was no communication from that point on. So they lost communication before the submersible had even reached the floor of the ocean. So I mean, in any situation, this doesn't look good at all. This does not look good. It is one of those Titanic horror stories that we've all sort of been afraid of ever since the ship was discovered, because when you're dealing with that level of pressure at that depth. I mean, I think that I remember the Titanic is 2 miles at the bottom of the ocean, under the Atlantic Ocean. So I mean, like I said, they might as well be on Mars or on the moon for the accessibility.
If you're just tuning into the Wake Up America show, good morning. I'm Austin Petersen. I'm speaking to my brother, Justin Petersen, who is our resident Titanic expert, about a missing submarine, a Titanic tourism submarine that takes wealthy people 2 miles below the ocean to visit the wreck of the famed 1912 cruiser that sank to the bottom of the sea after striking an iceberg in the Atlantic Ocean on its ill fated maiden voyage. Justin, do we know anything about the people who are on the boat right now or the crew?
Yeah, there were 5 people, like you said, aboard. We do know that we've confirmed Hamish Harding, who was a 58-year-old British businessman and explorer, as well as another businessman, Shahaza Dawood, and his son Suleiman Dawood. But as far as we know, those are the only people that are on board. We think that Paul-Henri Nargeolet, who is a French explorer, is supposed to be on board, but we don't have that confirmed yet. But yeah, this is what's known as Titanic tourism. These people who have a lot of money. I think Hamish Harding was a billionaire. No joke, like literally a billionaire. And yeah, I mean this whole project was really done not for scientific discovery, not for exploratory understanding of the wreck or things like that, but it's just kind of tourist undertaking. Like we'll take you down to see the boat for,
Do we know estimated about how much longer we have before this changes from a rescue operation to a recover operation?
Well, I mean, as of yesterday, they had between 70 and 96 hours left of oxygen in that submersible. So I would imagine that once we hit that mark, that's going to probably be the point at which things will probably turn from rescue to recovery.
So by tomorrow.
Yeah, I mean, it's really kind of, if you think about it, it's like Mount Everest, like people that go to Mount Everest, there's all of these bodies on Mount Everest that have tried to, they've tried and they've died on their way. So it's just unfortunate now the Titanic is going to have that kind of same, legacy of lost explorers who've gone down there. So it's unfortunate. It's really sad.
Do you believe in a curse?
No, I don't believe in curses. Only this hot body.
There is
Oh, don't have me
something.
on your show. I'm too much before coffee. I'm telling you right now.
Justin,
People aren't
what
ready.
about the Titanic was a luxury liner. Obviously, it had people who were on this boat who had people on the boat who were in steerage, and there were poor people there.
Right.
But this submarine is exclusively a playground of the rich.
Yeah.
Do you think that some people probably may not be feeling very sympathetic to people who engage in this
Here's the
kind of
thing.
tourism?
Can I just tell you, these are my values. If your first feeling, listen, if your first feeling about this situation is to have any sort of you're not even Schadenfreude. It's like happiness about these people's demise. You really need to look at yourself as a human being and see what your character is made of, because nobody, regardless of their social status in life, deserves to perish in this way. People who are safely ensconced in their basements with headphones and their mom's casserole can make such proclamations. But I find that people who wish to say such things usually have an inverse relationship with their ability to clean their rooms.
Justin, what do we know about the resources that are available
Mm.
to actually rescue these people?
Very few. This is the situation. I mean, even if let's say the theory of that they were free falling and they're at the bottom of the ocean, there are very, very few rescue vehicles that are able to get to that depth of ocean to rescue. We don't have it. There's never been a situation that has required us to be in a life-saving capacity with that level of technology to rescue people at that level of the ocean. Sadly, yeah.
Very sad. If you're just tuning in to the Wake
Grim.
Up America show, make sure you click that like button if you're enjoying your commentary. And it's your first time here, make sure you subscribe if you're watching us on Rumble or YouTube or any of the other channels that we're streaming live on this morning. We're also on Apple TV, Fire TV, and Roku. Grateful to have our audience over there through the Spreely app. We appreciate you very much. When I see this story, I don't I don't feel that sort of like class, warfare vibe, right? I feel bad
Mm,
for these people, but I mean, people who take these kinds of risks and who take their lives into their own hands, I mean, they must know that what they're doing is placing their lives in danger. I think this man, the Hamish gentleman, he also
mhm,
rode on the Blue Origin rocket from Jeff Bezos's Amazon in
right,
the last couple of years. So I mean, he's a thrill seeker. People who go out there and take their lives in their own hands in such a way, right? They do this knowing full well the risks. And
mm,
now, if I were in a situation such as that, Justin, I would certainly want someone to try and come and rescue me.
mm,
However, the resources of the U.S. Coast Guard, the resources of the
right,
government, people who go out and take insane and extreme risks and things like this, or people who go out and, canyons, with, wearing flip flops, go out
right,
hiking in canyons, and then we have to send in rescue helicopters, which are very expensive. Sometimes the government will send them the bill for that. These are quite wealthy people.
right.
Do you think that these people, if they are rescued, should be required to pay for that?
I mean, I don't see why not.
Yeah.
I mean, they did have to sign a waiver they did have to sign a waiver with the company before they went down, that they would absolve the company of any not wrongdoing, but negligence or disaster or things like that.
Mhm.
But the thing about it is that human beings, there's something in us that has always striven. Oh, Camelia, help me out here.
Strived.
strived for exploratory knowledge, whether that be a knowledge of the oceans, whether that be a knowledge of the next town over. It's in us to want to explore as human beings. I think about, but it also requires a lot of money to explore. I mean, I remember in fourth grade, Mrs. Collins' class, learning about the fact that Christopher Columbus had to go and ask Queen Isabella, of Spain for money. It's like, give me some money so I can go to America,
Yeah.
because he just didn't have it privately, so donations and we rag on the rich, but man, when they are philanthropists, they give the world a whole lot of great things, whether that be architecture, sculptures, buildings, whatever, exploration.
What is it about the Titanic specifically, Justin, that would drive
Mm,
someone to take such an enormous risk with their
mm,
own life and
yeah.
pay $250,000 of their hard-earned money to go 2 miles deep into the Black Ocean abyss just to look at an old shipwreck? Why?
You have to understand the people that are I'm in this crew, but I'm not that devoted. But there's people in this crew of Titanic lovers that are obsessed and they absolutely love this ship. Like they've built their whole lives around it, right? Everything is about Titanic for them, and for them it's a once in a lifetime opportunity. They're being given the opportunity to do something that most people never get to do in their life. Um, and I think for many people, there's such an emotional pull. This ship has such an emotional psychological pull for so many people
Why?
that, well, I think because here's the thing, you couldn't have written a story that is as gripping as this story. And I think the lessons that we continue to take away from it are so multifaceted in terms of human behavior, in terms of hubris, this idea that we can surmount nature, that we're able to overcome nature. We can't. We think we are. The egotism of the human spirit, um, the behavior of human beings in a situation, today we have plane crashes, right? Where this is so grim and macabre, but death is rather fast. In a situation like the Titanic, one has an opportunity to mull over one's life in an hour and a half, 2 hours, to contemplate one's mortality and decide how one will act, knowing that mortality is indeed coming in several hours. And to see that sort of on a mass scale. Also, I think it has to do with the fact that this ship was so architecturally beautiful. It had been appointed with some of the best furniture, the best design, the most wonderful designers of England and Ireland, and had come in to work on the ship. And also it was a maiden voyage. So, I mean, it didn't even get a chance to finish its voyage across the ocean. There's just so many powerful, and I think for us culturally today, we still you look at it as an example of hubris. I mean, today people in even business will say, well, we're arranging deck chairs on the Titanic, you know. So the ship continues to hold this very strong cultural pull on us psychologically, in terms of hubris and really to complete tragedy, but also the beauty of the human spirit in a way, because people acted in some ways that were so heroic and so valiant. They continue to inspire people to the present day.
Now, in regards to hubris, Justin, do you think that that might also apply to this submarine?
I think so. Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think that the situation with this submarine was really its construction and it's sort of that the ocean is unforgiving. And anybody who's ever done any work in the ocean knows that things corrode very quickly. I mean, anything that goes into the water has to be taken care of to a very high degree. Um, and when construction, first of all, is not so great, you're already putting yourself into a situation that's a little sketchy. I mean, I do recommend that you go have people go back and watch the video that CBS did where they show the inside of it. And I thought, would I want to sit in this thing for like 8 hours? Because a Titanic trip from top to bottom to top again is about an 8 hour trip. And I thought, and there's no bathrooms, by the way. You can't just be like, oh, I gotta pee. There's no comforts. There's no creature comforts in this thing. Um, and the workmanship was not great. So I think there's a lot of hubris in that. And I think the construction is going to be the real Achilles heel for this situation.
What do you think this means for any kind of Titanic tourism going forward? Do you think people can still continue to do this, or do you think this changes
Nope.
the game?
Nope. I think people are going to stop doing it. I really do. And I hope they would. I have really weird old views on things like this. I mean, I personally believe that the Titanic is a graveyard and it should really only be investigated by people who have a scientific desire to learn something about the wreck or what's going on down there. But this sort of like tourism thing is just to me I don't know, it rubs me the wrong way because I think it's a graveyard. And I think, if my relatives were on this ship and died, I would not
You
want
wouldn't want people poking around.
no, I really wouldn't. I'd be like, leave my relatives in peace. And I think it's interesting because many of the people who were survivors of the Titanic when it was discovered had the same philosophy. So I take my marching orders from the people who were actually there, who were on the Titanic, and said,
Well,
no,
talk
leave it
about that
alone.
for just a moment, Justin, before we let you go. What was that
Yep.
attitude of the people when they discovered it?
Well, many of the people who were survivors of the Titanic, and I think in 1985 there were maybe 20 left, maybe 20 survivors of the Titanic in 1985. They all were of the unanimous view that the ship should be largely left alone. I mean, yes, we've discovered it. Let's take photographs, but that's where it should stop. And even Robert Ballard was of the opinion in 1985 that the wreck should not be disturbed, that he respected it as a graveyard. And for many of those survivors, you have to remember their fathers died, right? They were waving goodbye to their fathers from the boat as their fathers, were on the ship of the sinking boat. So I mean, they didn't want their relatives' final resting place to be a place of social media, sensation. I mean, I think that's what they felt at that time, and I kind of agree with them. I like if it was my relatives, I would not want anybody messing with my relatives' graves.
Stephanie
That's
asked a
just me.
question. Are there still skeletons down there?
There's no all any organic material at the wreck site has been long since eaten away by underwater organisms. Nothing can survive at that depth, or not survive, but will stick around. However, the Great Lakes, right up in North America, they will. So, like for example, there's a ship called the Empress of Ireland that sank in 1914, I believe, in 17 minutes, which is also terrifying. But it sank in about 17 minutes, and there are still to this day remains at the ship because of the water and the temperature of that water and the way the composition of that water. But the depth of the Titanic's water and the underwater organisms have long since eaten away. But the sad thing is that oftentimes you'll see shoes which are made of leather, which the underwater organisms won't eat. So there will be remains of shoes, basically. Well, you'll see someone who came to rest, like a body would come to rest on the floor of the Atlantic.
Is there anything else about this story, Justin, that you would like to share with our audience?
No, no, I just think it's a really sad thing. I think it's one of those things that all of us since 1985 who've loved the Titanic have, we always want these explorers to come back. We always want them to be safe. And when you're at this depth and you're in this particular uninhabitable, inhospitable environment, you're always taking your life into your hands every time. So it's a real shame.
Mm. Justin Petersen, resident Titanic expert for the Wake Up America show, and of course, my brother. Justin, that stash just looks better and better every time we see you.
Oh, fresh.
Thank you, Justin. We appreciate you. I love you, brother. Have a good day.
Me too. Have a good day.
Thank you very much. What do you think about Justin Petersen and his reporting on the submersible that is missing in the Atlantic Ocean? You can send us a text at 573-319-1586. That's 573-319-1586. Here's what I think happened. The tourist submarine Titan's Eye descended into these dark depths, carrying a group of excited millionaires eager to witness the haunting beauty of the Titanic's resting place. And as the vessel approached the underwater wreckage, an atmosphere of anticipation had filled the air. Through the submarine's reinforced glass window, the passengers caught their first glimpse of an ethereal presence. Ghostly figures, adorned in elegant attire, appeared on the deck of this sunken ship. They glowed with an otherworldly radiance, their eyes shimmering like stars in the night sky. The millionaires were mesmerized by this sight, and the ghostly apparitions beckoned to them, their movements graceful and inviting. Their melodic voices carried through the water, reaching the ears of these passengers like a siren's song. The ghosts appeared alive once again, as if the Titanic itself had been resurrected. Enchanted by this captivating allure, some of these passengers couldn't resist the haunting call. They were drawn to the promise of an extraordinary experience, an opportunity to become part of the Titanic's storied legacy. The millionaires exchanged glances, their expressions torn between caution and temptation. As the debate raged between the submarine, the ghostly figures continued to sway and swing, their mesmerizing presence growing more potent with each passing moment. It was as though the Titanic, lost to the depths for so long, was yearning for new passengers to fill its once opulent halls. In a moment of collective decision, the majority succumbed to the allure of the ghost's invitation. The hatch of the Titan's eye swung open, exposing the passengers to the beckoning specters. Excitement mingled with trepidation as they stepped out onto the ghost ship's ethereal deck. Yet as their feet touched the spectral surface, the atmosphere shifted. The beautiful apparitions morphed into twisted and sinister forms. Their enchanting songs turned into haunting shrieks that reverberated through the water, piercing the eardrums of the millionaires. The once alluring ghosts, now grotesque and menacing, lunged at the unsuspecting passengers, their elegant facades shattered, revealing their true nature. With monstrous strength, they dragged the millionaires towards the Titanic's dark and decaying depths. Fear and panic consumed the passengers as they fought against the spectral onslaught. The ghost's icy grip tightened around their limbs, dragging them further into the watery wreckage. Desperate cries for help filled the silent depths, unheard by any but the ghosts themselves. In a matter of moments, the Titan's eye, once a vessel of luxury and dreams, became a tomb beneath the waves. The water rushed into the submarine, swallowing the pleas of the doomed millionaires. The ghosts and the dark waters had claimed their new victims, forever merging them with the tragic fate of the Titanic. Only an eerie silence remained, broken only by the distant echoes of the ghosts' laughter and the haunting creaks of the submerged ship. The ill-fated excursion had transformed into a tragedy, a chilling testament to the dangers of succumbing to the allure of the supernatural. The tale of Titan's Eye would be whispered among the depths, a warning to those who dared to trespass on the realm of the ghostly. The ghosts of the Titanic had lured the passengers to their watery graves, forever sealing their fate within the twisted embrace of the sunken ship. And that's all for the Wake Up America show. Thank you very much for tuning in. I hope you enjoyed the show today. Make sure that you click that like button if you haven't on the way out and subscribe to the channel. Tomorrow's Wednesday, so you know Judge Andrew Napolitano is going to come in here with his legal opinion. I wonder what he had to say about what Donald Trump said on the Bret Baier interview. Should be interesting stuff. Don't forget also to visit ap4libertyshop.com. Get all your awesome 4th of July merchandise 15% off, and we will see you tomorrow on the Wake Up America show. WakeUpAmericaShow.com.